Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future of Space. I'm your host, Daniel Fox. Our guest today is Matt Gohd. Matt is the Chief Executive Officer, CEO at Zero Gravity Corporation. Matt, welcome to the Future of Space.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me. And again, pardon my voice.
No, well, thank you very much for wanting to be on despite the voice. I'm totally for it. So, Matt, before we talk about your work and how you got there and all the amazing things that you're working on right now, could you share with us your three words that capture the essence of space for you?
I think of space as everything. I think of it as nothing, and I think of it as hope.
Excellent. Have you always been like looking up to the stars, or is it like a recent journey, or
As a young teenager, I built telescopes.
no way?
Yeah, reflecting telescopes. I built my first one was an 8-inch Newtonian reflector. I sold it, and then I took on a bigger project, a 10-inch Cassegrain, and ended up selling that to a local observatory.
Wow. So you went from telescope to zero gravity. Listen, there's a huge story there. I can't wait to hear. But before we go there, there's a science story, there's a technology story of going to space for obvious reasons. But what for you is the human story of going to space?
Going back for almost to the beginning of time, we have, as humans, have been explorers. Whether it was venturing out of the caves, past the saber-toothed tigers, to exploring the oceans, to flight, to everything it is we have always had this quest for exploration and finding what's out there. So I think it's in our DNA to basically always look for that next place. We're exploring oceans as we speak, places we've never been, with the same zeal as we're exploring space.
Do you think that it just life is always going places, right? And the humans are really one of the best vector of taking that life to new places. And it might be hard for people to understand the scale of the next step, but this is no different than standing at the beach, or at the bottom of the mountain and looking up and trying to figure out how there's always this thing in the back of our mind is like, I just want to go to the next, to these horizons that we see. And it's not a question of either do we want, it's how can we? And as soon as we develop the tools, whether it's a ship, whether it's a bicycle, whether it's crampons to go up the mountain, as soon as we have the tools with us, then we go and explore these new places. And now with these rockets and the technology, now we're finding ourselves with the technology to make that next leap possible. Is that right?
I think that's definitely a good way to say it. And the other way I would think about life in general is expansive. It is always reaching out and expanding and growing from the smallest cell to us, to basically things that are maybe more than us. So I think just the nature of the expansiveness of life, always will create a quest for more, for what is out there. And I think we have been able, again, via technology and time and willingness to take the risk, goes to those next places. And now we're at the next level of exploration. And literally, I think we're in the first inning, or if that, of this exploration process.
Oh, I mean, the leap that we're about to take is just going to open up to, it's a quantum leap. It's not just like these innovations and technologies that are about to become available and possible. The new reality that there will be creating is just like, it's a total new world. It's not just developing a new way to travel on Earth, but that door that we're like just opening is taking us to a total new reality. And I often say, I used to like the idea of living for more than 100 years, as a human before 5 years ago was, okay. I think 100 years on Earth is enough. But now the idea of going to space, if anyone has the opportunity to make me live until I'm 200-300 years, I'll take it because because I want to see what is coming for the next 50 years. Do you feel the excitement of what's coming up?
Yeah. Well, of course, we feel it. Every time I take the plane up with people who get this experience of what it feels like to be an astronaut, to be like the ultimate explorer, and the science that we develop on the plane for the expansion of what we do in space. So yeah, we're smack dab in the middle of it, and it is a. And again, my regret. I don't live my life in regrets. I wished I can be around when we get to that next interstellar potential of exploration and really find what's out there in habitable worlds, things of that sort. But right now, do my thing to help us get to those steps.
Now, as you mentioned, you started, as a young Matt back in the years doing telescope, making telescope, and here you are now, the CEO of Zero-G, which is, when it's about talking about these zero gravity flights, you're the destination to go, and you've not only for entertainment, but you've created a place for science and education. Can you tell us, before we get to really the nuts and bolts of Zero-G, that journey between the telescope and where you are today?
So I would call it much circular. The company was actually founded by an amazing entrepreneur named Peter Diamandis, who, by the way, is very focused on how we live into our hundreds, a NASA astronaut, Byron Lichtenberg, and a NASA scientist named Ray Cronise. And NASA had been training astronauts in parabolic flights, basically probably since the early 60s. And I remember myself seeing pictures of these guys in the flight suits hanging upside down, through the plane windows, and saying, "Oh my God, how cool would that be?" Well, Peter and his two colleagues obviously felt the same and undertook in the mid 90s a project to create a commercial venture with zero gravity. And it took them 10 years, and with backing of Elon Musk, who's done some other stuff in space, and Sergey Brin, who's done a few things in search, and other investors, they basically got this through up and running by 2005. I think the most iconic experience they had was in 2007, taking Stephen Hawking up on the plane and giving him, who we have so much to be thankful for, the first time in his life he felt free. So the company had been around, but relatively a small operation doing some research, some consumer flights, and about 3+ years ago had some issues, and one of the board members reached out to me. My career was Wall Street, and I was a very good problem solver, and this was what appeared to be an unsolvable problem. So far it hasn't been. Um, and so I took it over about 3 years ago with the idea of changing a lot of things in how we do it, how we present ourselves, how we do business, who we do business with. All, basically taking a company that had nothing touched since 2010 into the 2020s and assembled an exceptional team of people to do this whose skills far outweigh mine.
And now there's a lot of science that's been done on those flights, a lot of education. I've interviewed a bunch of people who went up, and for all different reasons. Carlos, who was almost blind and was doing some experiment, um, and just every time that they come back, the experience, the team, the entire from the minute that they step, on your premise to when they get off, they all, I mean, there's like a, talking to children, they come back all giggling. It's, so you've done an amazing job, but like, what is,
Well, I think it's. I appreciate you saying I. It's the team that we've assembled and trained and given a lot of responsibility to make decisions and invest in the decisions they make, and a lot of autonomy to create this, and pride of ownership. Everyone in my company is a stakeholder in the company, and I think we treat each other not just as employees but as teammates and partners. So I think the culture of the company is extraordinarily a reason why we've been able to do what we've done and create this amazing, from literally from the moment you hear from us that you're interested in doing it to the moment you leave, you feel like you've done something special.
and what do you think that experience of zero gravity, like if you bring it to the core of it, I mean, beyond the excitement of floating, what does it bring to people in general? Is there like a common thread, with all the passengers have been on board so far?
Almost all of them say this has been an extraordinarily touch point to their lives, and something that they've never felt possible, and could never identify it or define it or things of that sort. So I think that we've had people come off the plane saying this changed my life, and the people that have said that have ranged from former Navy test pilots to including astronauts who basically have done zero-G in their missions to the ISS, but it's been so long since they've done it, and the ability to have that experience again and connect with their past has been truly amazing. And people who just dream of it and have watched TV series or movies like Gravity or things of that sort and see these people floating and doing all these things in space, getting a feel for what that is. And it's not a simulation. This is exactly, we've had numerous astronauts on the plane, and they'll tell you the only difference between zero-G on our plane and zero-G, whether it's orbiting the Earth or on the ISS, is it's for us, it's segments of 30 seconds, and for there, it's all the time. But it's the same feeling.
And often in the world of today, because there's a lot of simulation, we're getting into an era of virtual reality. We talk about, the overview effect, this experience of looking at the Earth from the perspective of space, and already we're trying to see if we can replicate this experience here on Earth. But there's a physicality to certain experiences that you cannot replicate. You can simulate, you can give a glimpse, but the physicality of being in a place that's outside of your comfort zone that you don't expect, your body reacts in a certain way that you can't replicate. And this is what people experience when they get on board. Even though if you know about it, you see it, you learn, you can read all the manuals, but experiencing physically is something of a different dimension, right?
It is. It is. It is not a feeling that we have the vocabulary to define. It is. It is when you are suspended in the middle of air and just hanging out. It is the single most unique experience a person can have. There's nothing more unique than that.
Do you make a mission as with your team to also make that experience available to children, to young, to
Yeah,
students, so that they
we
can
do.
experience something that will change their life?
We do. We have a organization, Zero Gravity for STEM, that we contribute to and do projects with, where we will, whether it's an essay contest or sometimes it's a science process, and we'll reach out to STEM teachers in certain places that we fly and offer seats for the teachers and students that they select, because we don't want it just to be for people that have a couple of bucks to have a cool experience. We also do a project called Mission Astro-Access, where we've done two now of 12 extraordinary men and women who, if it hadn't been for basically being severely disabled, would be astronauts. So, we've had people on the plane without sight, ability to hear, or limbs, paralyzed, things like that, on the plane, and with the idea that space could be open to everyone. And that's been a truly moving and impactful thing that we've been able to do. And we're getting ready to do our third one in, I think, December. So, the idea is that it's expensive, but having just gone to Paris for the International Astronaut Conference, and it's the same price as a business class seat to Paris. So if I was going to spend, $8,000, I'd rather spend it on a flight on zero-G and have the most amazing experience. But it's not inaccessible. It's possible for a fair amount of people. We offer advantage pricing to, say, veterans, teachers, and people like that. So we try to do it in our way, but it's an expensive business to run. I have a combination of a single airplane airline, and I'm dealing in the space industry.
And we'll make that link to access those programs. We'll make sure that they're in the description so that people can find more information. It used to be, I think, just a couple planes, but recently I just looked at your Instagram, the company's Instagram, and you have Seattle. There's East Coast, West Coast. So what is coming up for 2023 in terms of opportunities and planes that are going to be going up?
So we have one plane now. We're in the midst of adding a second plane, and hopefully we'll get that underway in the next couple of. I mean, started in the next couple of months, and hopefully up and running by the end of next year. But right now, we fly out of Seattle, Las Vegas, Oakland, Long Beach, Houston, Austin, Miami. Kennedy Space Center, which is a really impactful place to do a flight out of, where we take off and land from the shuttle landing facility, and New York City, where we partner with Blade Helicopters, where you get a helicopter from Midtown Manhattan, fly over the Statue of Liberty, and land next to the plane. So, we do a couple things that are a little different, but those are the primary places that the plane moves to, and they're generally. And then we do, our research flights are generally done from Fort Lauderdale, Portsmouth with MIT, and Santa Maria, California, for some of the California institutions.
So it's one plane that tours the U.S. and then
It
maybe
is.
a second one, but it's touring all these different so that people can from different places can access it.
Yes,
So were you just recently in Paris for the IAC?
I was.
What was the general? I mean, unfortunately, I had to miss it this year. It was in Iceland with the Iceland Space Agency.
I know, so cool. I would have liked to have been where you were.
Well, Daniel, the executive director from the space agency, was at IAG, but I was meeting with his team. And I mean, if you've ever been to Iceland, it is.
I'm dying to go.
I just interviewed Daniel for the Future Space, and I think that Iceland needs to rebrand itself as the outer space here on Earth because it is absolutely outworldly. This little piece of Earth that is so majestic, and the landscape is like the nature, the extremity of nature is like breathtaking.
Yeah, I'm dying to go.
Excellent. Well, let's organize a zero-G in Iceland. What was the like the mood at IAC? Because more and more, even more than last year, there's a buildup of energy within the space community that is going beyond just your usual crowd of geeks in science and technology. Did you feel that in Paris?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's so much representation from different countries and all these different companies and institutions and education. So I think that we are literally just kind of starting this curve up into how we participate and interact with space. And so I felt the energy was significant, and it was crowded. I mean, it was packed. So I think that's exciting, and I think that again we are in the again, our focus is obviously in the manned space side, and so we're seeing a lot of going on there. I mean, you have obviously SpaceX, you have Axiom, you've got Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, you have the two balloon companies, Space Perspectives and Worldview. So over the next period of time, Starship will eventually be accessible. So over the next 7, 8, 9 years, there's going to be many ways to get some experience of what space is, and that will lead, hopefully, to that next evolution of exploration.
I can't wait for 2024 with Space Perspective, who they're scheduled for their first flight. In fact, I have a project with them where Space 110, where I'm planning on taking a group of 16-year-old up on board Space Perspective every year. Imagine that 16-year-old, if you get to experience seeing the Earth, the curvature of the Earth with the space. And Jane and I, we've talked on several occasions, and I've shared with her how I think that the going up on a rocket, that's exciting. It's an amazing, but to experience the overview effect without going to the ISS, I think a product like Space Perspective is like, I think, the best platform because it's a slow journey, 6 hours, and where you have the time to process the experience, as opposed to just this like adrenaline rush of going up. But I agree with you. There's going to be so many different ways within the next decade of experiencing space. And what would you say is the common thread within the space industry or community? Where is that energy, or what is that energy of that optimism coming from, you think?
I think again, I think obviously the first time our lives, the accessibility of space is there, and I think it's contagious. So I think that's what it is. Is it now all these things that we've thought about and dreamt about for decades, and read about, is now within reach of having these experiences.
I think that part of the excitement within the space is everybody understands that space is at the for the benefit primarily of Earth. Is a lot of people feel that the problems or some of the issues that we have to take care here on Earth, space is part of the solution. So they're looking with going up as a solution to take care of the what we have on Earth. So there's this collective kind of desire to find these answers, innovating, as opposed to, because I spent several years within the conservation and nature world, and there's always just this kind of gloom, this doom and gloom that we're a bad species and we're doing things in the wrong way. But then you get to space and it's just like, yes, we can. Like, yes, we'll find the answers. I mean, do you feel that also?
I do, I do. I think that again, we've not done a particularly good job on the conservation of our own planet, and I think that's leading to a significant crisis. I mean, the 100-year storms are every year. Places that used to be, get tons of rain are getting none. Drought in California, all these things are man-made. And so I think the hope is that maybe we'll do better as we explore space, and again, not within our lifetimes, but the ability to find a place that we can take the lessons that we've learned and how we've dealt with our own planet, and basically not do that again. But I think the necessity for us to find another place to be is out there, and because we are going to run out of runway where we are now.
And I think it's historically in our evolution, that's like, even when you talk about children and their parents, when there was a great migration from Europe to North America, North America represented this new beginning. If you go to the National Archives in Washington and you see the effort and the vision that the what America represented, and now space is about to be that place. We're taking the values and building that vision of the future, and starting, and creating that future that we want to be proud of. And already we're seeing a level of cooperation that we haven't seen before. And yesterday I was talking to Alex Fielding from Privateers, and we're looking into space with, like, we don't want to pollute it in the same way that we've doing it. There's already these efforts of cleaning up. I mean, do you feel hopeful that that next quantum leap is going to, like, we're doing everything that we can to build a better future?
I think it's going to take, unfortunately, a little bit more of a unified front to do that. And right now, we for sure lack that. We are all about our own, whether it's national or personal self interests. And for something as big as a major exploration and dealing with space is going to take something much more unified. And again, hopefully over time, that will be the case. I think for the near term, again, we have major issues with thousands and thousands of satellites up there, and many of them in decaying orbits and potentially colliding into other satellites, and so it's a mess. And I am excited about the space cleanup projects that are underway, because those are required. But the impact of an errant satellite hitting a major communication satellite is significant. It could take the internet down. It could take down all sorts of government communications, all these things. So, I mean, we had the privilege of getting to work with the United States Space Force, and part of it was getting to visit. Where of course we couldn't bring our cameras, but these very high technology rooms of showing us where all these satellites are and floating, circling the Earth. And boy, it's a traffic jam up there.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how, I mean, what we do, how we do it, and these innovate. I mean, it's, and these solutions that people are trying, trying to find as we're aiming now, to the moon and to Mars. By the way, if you had the opportunity to go to the moon or to Mars, would you take it?
Oh, in a heartbeat. I mean, I was interviewed once about, I think, the Axiom project, and we trained their astronauts as well as others. And when I, do that trip, and I said, well, it's $60 million. If I had $63 million of cash in my checking account, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because after that, what do I really need much money for?
Absolutely. Do you still get like excited every time you do a zero-G flight?
I do, because every experience is different. I think there's some things that are different, and some things are uniform. The uniform part is listening to people, whether they're children, adults, or seniors, laugh like they were on the playground and giggle and experience emotions that they probably have not felt since they were children. So I think that's a really kind of a neat thing. And then just watching how people explore this experience on as far as how they, and it tells you maybe a little bit about the people. The person that's immediately wants to do somersaults and backflips and things like that. The person who's just floating, and the person's asking, hey, what would you recommend as a cool thing to do? So I think you also learn a lot about people. But I think every experience is different, and but the constant thread is this unbridled, unconstrained glee that people have when they do this. They literally cannot control themselves.
Can you share, like, I'm pretty sure, like, over the years, you've seen, there's been moments that for you have marked and you remember um, these experiences of certain individuals. Can you share a couple of those stories?
Well, I think the most moving one for me was the first mission Astro-Access trip we did, where we had, and I was working with the hearing impaired, but also was in the middle of the plane looking up and down the plane and watching people who had been in a wheelchair or worse for their entire lives and feeling this sense of freedom and being able to move and float and do these things. And the same with people who are blind. Um, I thought it was, I mean, it was, it was teary. I mean, it was looking up and down this. So I think that was probably the most impactful experience I've had to have in this. But also, being with Charlie Dukes, who walked on the moon, and seeing how much fun he was having, and the experience. I mean, here's a guy that made it was part of history, and this was also like a new thing for him. So and ordinary people. I mean, families. I mean, we have people that bring up two or three of their kids, and they share this with them, and it's an amazing thing. Or bonding between people who've never known each other and come off the plane as best friends. So all those things are part of it, of getting to witness this experience. And we have famous people and celebrities and all that, but they end up on the plane just like everybody else.
Now, were you there when Stephen Hawking went up?
No, that was way before my time, unfortunately.
Have you had people actually like getting engaged or getting married on those flights?
We've had numerous engagements. We had a wedding this June that I sort of officiated at, and the reason I really got to officiate at it is that it was somebody that had known us and wanted to do this. And I said, well, the requirement was that I officiate, and they were all wearing black tie, and I said I would be doing the same. And I said, nope, the next condition is I want to be able to wear a white dinner jacket. So, sometimes you have to use your power when you can.
Absolutely. It's I've worked in hospitality for a long time, and just the last 2 months I was on Seabourn Venture expedition ship, and part of the pleasure is seeing. It's not, yes, I love being there, and I love taking the images, and I love the entire the remoteness of where we go. But I think that the best part of it is the guest or the people that you see, their eyes opening and just like enjoying life in its fullest and experiencing the human experience. And I guess that, from your perspective with the zero G, this is really at the core of it. It's okay, yes, you go up, but it's realizing that they are experiencing something that they will never, and then just looking at the child coming out. I guess that, it's above all what you like about the product that you offer at Zero G, correct?
It is, and it is. It's giving, like what you've been able to participate in is, people living outside their dreams. And for us, that's what it is as well. As people are, when they step onto our plane, they are way above any dream they've ever had.
So what's coming up for you and Zero G? I mean, are you working on other projects? Is Zero G expanding beyond just one plane or new accessible program? What's in the pipeline for the next 2 to 5 years for you and Zero G?
So we have a few things in progress. Obviously, the next one is taking on a second plane, which would be another Boeing 727, identical to the one we fly. We're also, starting to do research and engineering analysis on a next platform, a larger plane, a little newer, that would have, international capabilities, and that is something we're very interested in, as well as being able to get this experience to different parts of the world that are interested in it. We're working on a very interesting immersive entertainment experience for the plane. We're going to be very involved in the build out of the space stations because of all the need to test how things will work in space. And as lunar exploration gets further, we're getting a lot more science missions just to do in lunar gravity. So we're seeing all sorts of things. We're seeing a lot of interest. Corporations taking the plane up, putting up their top executives, branding the plane, rewarding top customers, top salespeople. We had a parent bring 10 of his kids, friends, up recently for the birthday party. So even though it is definitely a bit pricey, it's accessible, and I think are continuing to be more in the consciousness of what can be done. And we're really excited to be working with every major partner, participant in this industry, whether it's Jane and Tabor at Space Perspectives, or Alan at Worldview, or Virgin and Blue and Axiom in Space. All those, we get the opportunity to work with closely, and we get to meet some amazing people who are doing amazing things, which is also an incredible thing. And for me, I've always wanted to make an impact or a difference, and have a touch to history. And I think in this, with this company and what we're doing, I get to do both.
I think we should take some of the politicians, the House leader from both sides, and have them experience and see how better their relationship after it gets.
It's not a bad idea, because again, the bonding that people have, from this experience is lifelong, and it does. You feel like you've been to space, and I think unfortunately at this point in our history we're probably kind of beyond that. But I think in the future it's probably not a bad idea.
Now you're talking about international. Is there anything that prevents the company from, let's say, touring, doing a world tour? Um, or I mean, you could. It's just a question of producing it.
Yeah, it's like everything else in this company, it's got its level of complexities, but none of them appear to be unsolvable. So it's just having enough lead time, creating the economic model that works for us to take the plane out of what we're doing, and make it worthwhile for my employees and my shareholders. But no, it's definitely something that we have a real active conversations in doing, and our hope is potentially to do something like that later next fall.
Now, you and I, we met at the Space Tourism Conference, and then you were at I. Are you planning? Are you like for 2023 going to be at all the following the most of the space conferences and beyond? Do you have like a travel schedule for 23? Pretty busy.
I'll be no, I'll be at some, but I also, want other members of my team. What I'm very conscious about is I don't want this company to be me or my personality. So my director of research will be at what is it, the conference in National Space. in Colorado, I think in March, and my COO will be at others. So, and other people. So my goal is over the next year we will have presences at these things. But I wanted, kind of mix it up of my team that's talking about what we're doing, and they're all incredibly capable of doing it as much as I am.
Well, we'll make sure that all the links again are in the description, because was it some months ago I noticed that in Houston you were looking, the company was looking for I think an ambassador or a
So it's always looking for what are called flight coaches.
yeah, exactly.
So flight coaches are the ones that come up on the plane and they help the flyers do the somersaults and the spins, and at the same time make sure they're off the ceiling when the plane goes from 0G to high G, and we're always looking to add people in those roles. It's a super fun, cool thing to get to do. I think you don't make a ton of money, but you make enough for dinner or I don't know, maybe buy yourself some clothes. But it's a cool thing to get to do, and so our goal is to have coaches in each of the markets that we fly to, and that also reduces some of the travel strain on the people on my team. It makes it a little easier, and also helps people in those locales kind of identify with what we're doing. So we're definitely always looking to add people to that, and they can reach out to us, for that. So
Now, Matt, I've always thought that I mean, maybe I am right or wrong, but I thought that when you experience the 0G is because you're falling, the plane is falling, but you're not falling, right? It's
so
what,
yeah. So
what is the science behind it?
hang on for a second. Just give me 1 second. I might be able to do this even better. Okay, so this is a little smaller than the plane we normally take. So this is for very, very small people, as opposed to, say, you and I. So basically, what the plane does is it starts off, at the airport, kind of climbs a little bit, levels off at about 20,000 feet. Then when we get to our dedicated space, it's called a military box. It's only for us. Nobody's ever seen us do parabolas, and we've never seen anybody. So once we get to our box, the plane kind of pitches up, say about 50 degrees, and as it's kind of getting up, it's right about there. You start to, there's basically the plane is slowing down and there's a change of acceleration and velocity. So now you're just starting to kind of, we're going from maybe a little under 2 Gs to basically normal to now starting to close in towards microgravity. And as the plane kind of comes up and around like this, you're now floating in the plane. And then as the plane kind of dips like this, you're still floating. And then as it gets like this, you're back on the ground and it goes like this. So if you kind of think about it, it's like this part of the parabola is really where you're achieving most of the of your microgravity. And if you look at whether what's Blue or Virgin are doing, they're just in one huge parabola. I mean, we're going from 20,000 to 30,000 feet. They're going from whatever it is, 30 miles up to 55 miles, and then making this huge, huge arc. And they're getting about 3 minutes of 0G time. You got to buckle yourself, do all these things and buckle back. We're getting 15 of these parabolas of about 25 seconds to 30 seconds each. So you're getting about 8-ish minutes of microgravity time in the experience, and you're getting to learn from each time you do this what you can do the next time.
So your body, when you experience the microgravity, is because your body is continuing the movement forward without any resistance, while the plane is kind of like around you. So you're not falling; you're continuing accelerating.
Exactly. There's acceleration and velocity. So yeah, absolutely. And then the pilots, who are extraordinarily talented, and it takes a long time for them to get to that point, for us to train and put a new pilot in the left seat. So what they have on the dashboard is a little rubber duck. And so once, obviously when the plane's going up, the rubber duck is kind of stuck to the dashboard. As the plane gets up to here, the duck is now floating in the cabin, in the cockpit, and then they're basically flying the plane based on where the duck is in the cockpit. So if the duck's too far here, then they obviously know they're going a little too fast, so they can slow it down. If the duck's over here, they steer the other direction. If the duck, so they're literally, and that represents the passengers in the back. So they're flying the plane around the passengers.
And if I'm correct, it's all these ups and downs. You gradually make them experience the different uh, the zero. It's not like the first one. It's a full on zero gravity. They start from point something and then slowly work their way forward. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, the first three parabolas are lunar gravities. So, one giant step for man, one small step for man, one giant step for mankind. You can do that in lunar gravity. Plus, you can do push-ups, which are really fun. You do a push-up, you go like this, and then come back down. So we do three of those to give people some acclimatization to a microgravity environment, and then from there we start doing zeros. And zeros are it's undefinable.
I find it's you know when I was in Greenland, I was visiting this north ruins. The only building standing is a church. It's always interesting to see the buildings standing from the past are usually the ones that express our faith to something bigger. Like it's not about the houses, but are houses of religions. But it's that village dates back for 700 years ago, and they would not even comprehend or understand our lives today. Just like this idea of whether it's a ship or cell phone or walkie-talkie. And I was trying to imagine 700 years from now the type of life and human experience that we will have. It's just beyond our realm of.
Yeah, and I call that, and I think about that a lot. It's so funny you say that, Daniel. Is that if you had gone back 150 years, say mid 1800s, and let's just say you looked up in the sky and there was a plane somehow, whether obviously not one of ours, but someone visiting us flying across, the sky. How would you describe it? Is it a train that's in the air? I mean, it would exceed your vocabulary. So we're all limited by what we know at this point in time, and so when new things happen, we adjust to it. So to say, yeah, in some period of time, hopefully, when we're able to solve, the acceleration of mass, past the speed of light, that will be the next major breakthrough for mankind and our ability to explore, inhabit, develop, and continue other sciences for us. And again, I don't think that's going to be, sadly, in our lifetime. We can't seem to get past, I think, 20,000 miles an hour right now. But it'll happen. And I think the human experience will be quantifiably different. I mean, it won't be about things or possessions or anything like that. It'll be, I think, continuing the betterment of what we do for others and betterment of science and things of that sort.
Even just the planes. I'm pretty sure that the Wright brothers never even thought that a zero-G flight would be an avenue possible by inventing flights. We take it to, and every time I get onto a plane, I'm always mindful and conscious of how flying back in the days where they were almost flying blindly, like without the radars and without, if they had a storm they had to go through because it was only one way. And now we're able, how many people fly every year? And yes, you get turbulence and everything, but you'll never experience the kind of danger that used to be associated with flights. And, even on your flights, the level of information and data that allows us to create those experiences, it's just, it's mind-boggling.
It truly is. I don't think the Wright brothers, when they took off from North Carolina, envisioned that we would be flying from Los Angeles to Tokyo.
Amazing. Matt, you were in the finance world, now you're in the human experience world. If, with all your wisdom, what would be like your words of wisdom, Matt's words of wisdom?
I think I live my life by a couple short sentences. The first one is, why not? If somebody asks me, what about doing this, whether it's a teammate on my asking me about a project, why not? because the only way you advance yourself or the things you're involved with is to continually be willing to be expansive in your thinking. And so, to me, it's, why not? So I think that's one. And I think the other thing is that, you should always be willing to take a chance. And it's not needless risks or things like that, but things that you think will help you get to that next level in your life. You should always be willing to take the chance. I mean, life is short; it still is short, and the goal is to fill it with memorable experiences and relationships, and really not with things. I'm not a things person, and things don't have a emotion and can't love you, and I respect people that want to own big homes, big cars, all that things. But I think for me, it's how you accumulate experiences and how you accumulate relationships and how you treat people is the should be the goal in life.
Absolutely, totally agree. Now, Matt, if people want to reach out to Zero G, I mean, you're on all the social media. You're also on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty sure the company is fairly open to access.
We are. I mean, I get things on LinkedIn all the time from somebody pitching me a website design, all these things, and I'm actually always respond. I say thank you for reaching out, but we're set. So I was that person, in my career, reaching out to whoever I could reach out to see if I could get them to pay attention to me. So we're always accessible. And we may not be able to allocate the time that somebody might want from us, but we'll always try to be polite and courteous in how we respond to it.
Wonderful, Matt. Thank you so much. Please go and take care of that voice.
I'll be fine.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm looking forward for our next time together, whether it's a space
I as well.
conference somewhere, but we'll make sure to have a nice glass of wine together and continue this conversation.
I would love that. Daniel, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.